Okay, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. We were still discussing the verses of Badr, and in there, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said that when an army proceeds and goes to the enemy, it is not permissible for them to flee the battlefield. It is not permissible to be like إلا متحرفا لقتال أو متحيزا إلى فئة فقد باء. Yes, there's only two reasons why you can. If one is when you retreat for strategic reasons. You retreat for strategic reasons. You go back for strategic reasons. So from these two verses, verses 15 and 16 comes the governing rule that no matter how large in number and superior in strength and power the adversary may be, it is haram, it is forbidden, it is unlawful for Muslims to turn their backs from fighting them, with the exception of two conditions. That is, turning the back is not for deserting the battlefield. Instead, it is a feinted move or strategic ploy, like you act like you're retreating, but you attack again. And that it is with the intention to return with the auxiliary forces and resume attacking afresh. When these verses were revealed during the Battle of Badr, this was the operating order of the time. That is, taking on the enemy irrespective of his numbers, strength, and power, and irrespective of your own numbers and strength as compared to it. Then do not turn back from the combat and run for your life. This is how it was in Badr. Only 313 Mujahideen were facing 1,000 right people, 3 times the number. It was later on the injunctions relaxing restrictions that were revealed in verses 65 and 66 of Surah Anfal. Now on the study in verse 65, that 20 Muslims have been commanded to wage jihad against 200 disbelievers. So the nation was 20 against 200 believers and 100 Muslims against 1,000 of them. Then in verse 66, the following law of additional relaxation, then Allah Ta'ala made easy. He said, Al-ana khaffafa Allahu ankum wa alima anna fikum da'fa fa'iyakum minkum mi'atun sabiratu yaghlibu mi'atayn. Now Allah Ta'ala has granted relief to you in view of your weakness, whereby 100 steadfast Muslims shall be able to overcome 200 disbelievers. The indication given here is that Muslims are after all expected to overcome an adversary twice their number, right? So it was reduced, right? Therefore, it is not permissible for them to turn their backs. However, if the numerical strength of the adversary turns out to be more than twice their numbers, then under such condition it is permissible to disengage and leave the battlefield. You see, so if they are double now you can disengage, you can, right? Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Abbas said, a person who fled against 3 did not flee, but the one who fled against 2 is a deserter. That is answerable for a major sin. This is from Ruh al-Ma'ani. Now this is the injunction which holds good right through to the last day. According to the consensus of majority of the Muslim Ummah and in the view of the 4 Imams, the exact Islamic legal position in this case is until such time the number of the adversary does not go beyond twice, it is haram to desert the battlefield as a major sin. So if the enemy is more than double your number, then you can flee. But until they are less than double your number, you can't flee, right? That is now the law. That's the final ayat, that's the final verse. In Sahihain al-Bukhari and Muslim, it is reported from Sayyidina Abu Huraira that the Holy Prophet identified 7 things as fatal for a person. He counted fleeing from the battlefield also. In other words, there are 7 sins that can harm a person. He counted fleeing from the battlefield also as one of these. And the whole Quran narrated the early retreat of the noble companions during the Battle of Nain as a satanic slip which confirmed that it is a great sin. The actual statement of the Quran is Innama what's it verse? Innama satazalluhum shaitan. Satan has made them to slip, right? So you see, because they were they were not 2 to 1. The numbers were not in that proportion, so it was not permissible. Remember, if it is more than 2 to 1, then you can flee. So they were not overwhelmed to such an extent that for every one of them there was 2. That's why it was referred to as a sin in the Quran. You understood that? So Tirmidhi and Abu Dawud have reported the incident of Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Umar that once he left the battlefield, took refuge in Medina and presented himself before the Holy Prophet ﷺ, where he confessed to his misconduct and expressed his utter dismay and confusion on having becoming a sinning deserter of the battlefield. The Holy Prophet ﷺ, far from being displeased with him, rather comforted him by saying, Bal antumul atiruna wa ana, right? No, you are not from those who who flee from the battle. Instead, you are here to seek support, after which you are going to back. You will return, right? So la fararun lakin kararun. You never flee, but you will return, right? You are here to seek support, after which you are to go back into the battle and attack again. And I'm here for you, the support. Here the Holy Prophet made it clear that the act of those who fled into Medina for refuge is included under the exception which permits leaving the battlefield in order to assemble and bring back additional support. So I told you, if you're not fleeing for your fear of your life, but if you are fleeing to get more support, right? It was actually on the basis of the especially high degree of fear or in the recognition of the greatness of Allah Ta'ala, which was part of his persona, that Abdullah ibn Umar was disturbed even at this maneuvered retreat as well, and went to the act of presenting himself before the Holy Prophet as if he had committed some crime. So it wasn't really a crime, but because he was such a cautious person, he was such a cautious person that he thought he committed a crime, right? How we say, Asanat al-Abrar Sayyat al-Muqarrabin. In the third verse, number 17, after recounting the rest of the event which transpired at the Battle of Badr, Muslims have been instructed that they should not take the defeat of many by some of the strong. They should not take the defeat of many by some and of the strong by the weak in the miraculous victory of the Battle of Badr to be the outcome of their own effort indeed. In fact, they should be looking towards the most sacred being of Allah Ta'ala, whose help and support totally rewrote the plans of Badr. So Muslims have been instructed they should not take the defeat of many, right, by some and the strong of the weak in the miraculous victory in the battle to be the outcome of their own effort indeed. So here in this verse number 17, Allah Ta'ala is telling him that don't attribute the victory in Badr to yourself, but rather attribute this to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The details of this event mentioned in the verse have been reported by Ibn Jarir al-Tabari, al-Bayhaqi and others, as based on narrations from Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Abbas and others. On the day of the confrontation at Badr, says the report, when the armed forces of 1,000 men of Makkah entered into the valley from behind the cliff, it did not hide its contempt for Muslims being low in numbers and weak in combat fitness. And on top of it, it became waxing proud over its numbers and strength, betraying great arrogance. That was from the mushrikeen. They showed a great deal of arrogance. At that time, the Holy Prophet raised his hands of prayer, saying, Ya Allah, here come your belayers, the Quraysh of Makkah, all proud and arrogant. The promise of victory have you made to me. Let that promise be fulfilled soon. Right thereupon, Angel Jibreel came and said, you take a handful of dust and throw it towards the army of the enemy. He did what he was asked to do. And according to a report of Ibn Abi Hatim, based on the narration of Ibn Zayd, the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam picked up a handful of dust and pebbles thrice. The first he threw towards the right of the army, the second towards the left, and the third towards the center. The outcome was that these 1, 2, 3 handfuls of dust and pebbles were divinely spread out miraculously all over them. So much so that not one man from the force, right, was left without having received part of the dust and these pebbles over his eyes and face. Naturally, this caused a rampage in the army. Muslims pursued them. The angels were with them, fighting and killing. Right. Finally, some fighting men from the opposing army were killed and some were taken prisoners, and the rest ran away, and the battle was won by the Muslims. Right. That covers the whole verse. Or was there anything else? Yeah, okay, Bismillah. So, in start the Arabic, read the Arabic, Bismillah. Yeah. يقول تعالى متوعدا على الفرار من الزحف بالنار. Allah Ta'ala speaks متوعدا, promising على الفرار, about fleeing من الزحف, from the battlefield, بالنار, with fire, لمن فعل ذلك, for whoever do that, right? So he says that Allah Ta'ala says yeah. So Allah Ta'ala says يا أيها الذين آمنوا إذا لقيتم الذين كفروا زحفا, when you meet, or you believe, when you meet the enemy, zahfan, advancing, right? 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 So, يا أيها الذين آمنوا إذا لقيتم الذين كفروا زحفا أي تقاريتم منهم, right? What you got? تقاربتم منهم ودنوت إليهم, تقاربت إلى منهم, you came close to them, then, right? فلا تولوهم الأدبار, they do not show your back towards them, أي right, right, تفرقوا وتتركوا أصحابكم, that you scatter and you leave your companions. Okay, Moulana Nazim is able to stop, inshallah. Nice Bishkat too. We'll continue tomorrow, inshallah. First, subhanallah.